Dina Onnested. Israeli forces bombed a United Nations-run school in Beit Hanun in northern Gaza today. Forces in the south have killed some 20 people in Rafah, including 7 children. Some of the strikes hit the Egypt side of the border. Israel's vowing to keep up the fighting as the Palestinian death toll in Gaza tops 18,000. About 90% now of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been displaced. UN agencies say there's no safe place to flee. UNRWA Commissioner Philippe Lazzarini, speaking in Doha, called for a ceasefire today.
There is no doubt that a humanitarian ceasefire is needed if we want to put an end to hell on earth right now in Gaza.
Israeli forces also raided and bombed a Kamal Adwan hospital in northern Gaza, killing women in the maternity unit after days of shelling it. The World Health Organization says Gaza now has 11 partially functioning hospitals out of 36. It's also accusing Israel of detaining medical staff who are caring for patients. At the same time, Israel's opening a second crossing to Gaza that will allow more humanitarian aid to enter amidst a dire situation with lack of food, clean water, and medication. The Washington Post is reporting the U.S. supplied Israel with white phosphorus it used in Lebanon. Spokesperson Matthew Miller says they're investigating that.
We are concerned by the reports of the use of white phosphorus. Obviously, there is a legitimate military use for white phosphorus, but that does not include using them on civilians. It means that if you use them, you have to do everything you can to minimize civilian harm. Anytime that we provide items like white phosphorus or really anything to another military, we do it with the expectation that it will be used for legitimate purposes and in full keeping with international humanitarian law and the law of armed conflict. So we're looking into this and looking for additional information.
Matt Miller. As global climate talks near an end in Dubai, disagreement remains over the main cause of global warming, how to address fossil fuels. Despite calls for the phase out and just transition off fossil fuels from the United Nations and climate justice groups, a draft agreement calls for a reduction, not a phase out. FSN's Ollie Barrett has more.
The UN Climate Summit risks ending in failure due to disagreements about the future role of fossil fuels. Delegates from oil-rich countries at COP28 want to see more use of carbon capture technology to limit harmful emissions from traditional energy sources. But many scientists and developed nations believe that drastically reducing the use of fossil fuels is the only way to stop global warming. For many delegates, one glimmer of hope is an increased focus on the importance of renewables. Bruce Douglas is CEO of the Global Renewables Alliance.
Interestingly, at this COP, renewables has been welcomed at the highest level. As you've seen, there's a pledge now from over 130 countries to triple renewable energy by 2030. I mean, that's an enormously significant step for us, and we see it as a historic moment. But it's still not fast enough, and that's the point, and that's the message we're trying to get across here.
Ollie Barrett reporting.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky's on Capitol Hill to lobby for more U.S. military support as Republicans are holding up President Joe Biden's $110 billion aid request for Ukraine, Israel, and other national security needs. This comes as nearly 600 Russian shells, rockets, and other projectiles rained down on southern Kherson region in Ukraine, and hackers knocked out the phone and internet services of Ukraine's biggest telecom provider that serves more than 24 million mobile customers. Farah Siddiqui reports.
President Joe Biden and Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky will meet at the White House today as the administration presses Congress to provide more aid to Kiev. Zelensky spoke at the National Defense University in Washington yesterday.
America and all free nations need to be confident in their strength, in their leadership, so that dictatorships doubt themselves. When the free world hesitates, that's when dictatorships celebrate.
I'm Farah Siddiqui for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
The House Rules Committee is expected to take up the issue of an impeachment investigation into President Joe Biden. Democrats are blasting the move as a political stunt. Christopher Martinez reports.
California Democrat Eric Swalwell of Castro Valley was the House manager for the last impeachment of Donald Trump.
It's absolutely maddening that in this last week of the year, a year that started off in chaos as Republicans fought among themselves to find a speaker, that they're trying to unite themselves with an extreme political stunt.
He says this is just the continuation of not accepting that Joe Biden won the 2020 election, a view espoused by former President Donald Trump, as well as by the current Speaker of the House, Republican Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Johnson spoke about the impeachment inquiry vote over the weekend on the Fox News program.
So we have to be very methodical and careful and follow the facts where they lead. The impeachment inquiry is the next necessary step because the White House is now stonewalling our investigation.
Democrat Swalwell is critical of Speaker Johnson's role.
He, in fact, was the architect of the plan that Donald Trump used to aim a mob at the Capitol on January 6th to convince people that the election was stolen.
Swalwell was joined at the news conference by Brad Woodhouse of the Congressional Integrity Project.
And this entire effort is retribution on behalf of Donald Trump.
I'm Christopher Martinez.
I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.